What's going on, everybody? What's happening? It is episode 187 of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. My name's Dave McCrae, coming to you live from the Voice Man Studios in Toronto, Canada. He's Tony Michael in Atlanta, Georgia. And tonight, we are giving our top 5 final girls. What makes a great final girl? Who are the final girls? Where did the name come from? Ladies and gentlemen, we are live! On the road to episode 200. This is episode 187. Final girls. Who are they? You know them, you love them. Maybe you don't love them, I don't know.
You hate them.
You hate their fucking guts, I don't know. Ooh, yes! Tony Michael, how are you? How's it going? What's shaking? What's doing?
Oh, it's Monday. We're back at it.
It is Monday. We are back at it. And this is our 187th episode. It's hard to believe 187 episodes. I mean,
getting closer.
We were talking yesterday over Facebook, and you were like, did we do that episode? I can't remember if we've done that episode. There's so many episodes, I don't even remember what we've done. We've done so many,
Everything
many good
just
ones.
gets lost in the shuffle.
It does, It does. Yeah, we've done so many good ones.
And then I'm looking it up like, oh yeah, we did do that, but we didn't talk about this when we did that. Why didn't we talk about this when we did that?
Right, exactly. And you know, we first started out for like the first, 50 episodes, we were just talking about some of our favorite movies. And then for the next like 110 episodes, we watched movies. So we've watched like over 100 films, on the channel as well. And now of course we're mixing it up a bit. We're due for a watch along soon at some point, but this was a good topic.
You know what I just watched over the weekend, which was so good, man. It was a good callback to like 80s slasher because of just its over the top like nuttiness, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so right out of the 80s. The only thing it was missing was a little TNA. It would have been perfectly set in the 80s, because I think the film is set in the 80s too. Was Cocaine Bear. Movie. Don't take it seriously. It's just fun. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's over the top, fucking nuts. Really just like, I was expecting low. Like I was like, okay, like, all right, it's available on Peacock. So I was like, all right, I didn't spend any money, and I'm like, I'm watching it for free. I don't have to spend any money on this. Man, it was just fun.
Yeah.
Just a fun movie to watch. Like, and the way they wrote the story and how the kills and the way the bear, it's very 80s vibe minus like a guy in a mask. You know what I mean? In this case, it's a fucking apex predator, right?
Yes. So. I haven't seen it yet. I've got to see it.
You got to. It's good. That would be a fun watch along to, because it's just fun. It's not meant to be taken seriously.
For sure. Yeah. Absolutely. By the way, just because I got to get it out there, 2 weeks today, the Indiegogo campaign for It's Me Billy Chapter 2 launches 2 weeks today. We are 2 weeks away from that launch. Very exciting stuff. We are continuing to work hard behind the scenes through the development process. So just, mark those calendars if you haven't already. It would be great to see everybody's avatars and faces and names who came out to support the first film, to support the final conclusion. It would be awesome to see your names in there again. And we can't do it without you. That's not hyperbole. That's a fact. You are the, we might be the heartbeat, but you guys are the blood. And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so. No, that's just true. I mean, it's 100% true. So 2 weeks today, Monday, May the 1st, 2023, the Indiegogo campaign for It's Me Billy Chapter 2 goes live on Indiegogo. I will be announcing it, of course, here on YouTube and across all my socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. It would be awesome. I'll mention it then, of course, too, but awesome if you share it across your socials as well. The more people that know about it, the better, obviously, and the stronger start that we could have, the better, because with a 2-month campaign, There's always that lull in the middle when things kind of quiet down. So we want to have a really strong start out of the gate, which would be fantastic. So yeah, just wanted to kind of remind people of that. 2 weeks today. We need all hands on deck, firing on all cylinders to get this bad boy going. We really want to show you how it ends, but we can't do it without. We want to show you how it ends, but we can't do it without your help. So it's right. It's that kind of thing that is the case when you are crowdfunding. So yeah. Final Girls. Tony and I have come up with our top 5. The criteria here was just sort of, our favorites.
And clarify top 5. Our top 5 favorites. This is not a definitive, what Dave and I are saying, this is set in stone. These are the best. Like, there's final, it's all subjective. You know what I mean? So if you have a girl that you like, just please take that into consideration before Dave gives his and I give mine. We're not saying this is the definitive list. These are our personal favorites.
Correct. That is correct.
I hate having to put that caveat in there, but
hey, it is the internet. It is the internet.
You gotta know nowadays because they made well, Dave McCrae said this and he thinks it's dead.
No, I know. It's the, and again, we're not talking about anybody specific. It's just the internet in general. Those things do happen. But yes, the measuring stick here is just our favorites. That's what it is. That's the measuring stick for this list. If we were to choose a different measuring stick, we would probably have a different list, but the measuring stick is just our favorite Final Girls here. So, and of course,
well, someone brought up on your post and said well, how far back do you go with it, right? You know what I mean? And I basically said, and I responded to him, I said, obviously the diehard horror fans could pull shit from the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s and 60s. There's no question. I'm sure there's something in there that you can pull out a name or a character and say, that was the first Final Girl. To me, the way I responded to him, in general conversations over the years, talking about horror movies with horror friends and fans and whatever, casual conversation, the bar tends to be set right around where Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Black Christmas came out. Those two films, because they came out 2 months apart from each other, same year. That tends to be where Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Sally's character is the launching pad going forward. I think that's usually the general, but that's not to say, because I know what's going to happen in the comment section. Well, this person in 1956 played this character. You know what I mean? You get the technicality of it. I think what you and I are talking about tonight is the general, from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 74 up to present day.
Well, let's talk about, and let's talk about the term Final Girl, because where does it come from, right? Okay, well, this is according to Wikipedia here, and I did a McCrae Live on this 2 years ago, and I talked about this, but just to sort of brush it up for those of you that are watching. So this comes to us from Wikipedia. It says here, the Final Girl is a trope in horror films, particularly slasher films, okay? It refers to the last girl or girls or women alive to confront the killer. Okay. The Final Girl has been observed in many films, including the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, Alien, Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, and I guess they added here Train to Busan. I don't know if I would include that, but I kind of get what they're saying.
Sure.
The term was coined. The term itself is not as old as you might think, although depending on how old you are, I guess.
I don't even think 20 years, right?
No, it's older than that, but the term was coined by Carol J. Clover. Carol J. Clover coined the term in her book, Men, Women, and Chainsaws, Gender in the Modern Horror Film, 1992. Okay. So the book was from 1992.
So what's that? Almost 40 years, right?
31 years.
31 years.
31 years.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Clover suggested that in these films, the viewer began by sharing the perspective of the killer, but experienced a shift in identification to the final girl partway through the film. Of course, there's a picture of Olivia Hussey there. Usage of the term. The original meaning of final girl, as described by Clover in 1992, is quite narrow. Clover studied slasher films from the 70s and the 80s, which is considered the golden age of the genre, and defined the final girl as a woman who is the sole survivor of the group of people, usually youths, who are chased by a villain and who gets a final confrontation with that villain. Whether she kills him or she is saved at the last minute by somebody else, such as a police officer, and who has such a privilege because of her implied moral superiority. For example, she is the only one who refuses the sex, the drugs, or, such behaviors, and blah, blah, blah. So at the time that she coined this term in 1992, right, there was only a certain amount of material that she had to be able to draw from. And because it was 1992, it made sense that she was drawing from the 1970s, and the 80s. Now, if you want to talk about final girls, horror has evolved, the slasher subgenre has evolved. We can probably pick out many different types of, what about this subgenre? What about that girl? What about this girl? What about Sarah Connor, Terminator? I mean, there's people that think, the Terminator's a slasher movie, and that they go on and I tend to disagree with that, but I understand why they feel that way. But I tend to not want to blur the lines. I like things very clearly defined. And to me, a slasher film is what a slasher is clearly defined in terms of the rules. And people tend to like to play loose and fast with the rules. When a certain film kind of has elements of a slasher, they figure, it's a slasher. It's a slasher, sci-fi, comedy, drama, romance, porn, and it's like, no, it's just this. Do you know what I mean? And so that's how I feel about it. That's how I feel about it. But I do understand why some people look at something like Terminator and go, well, if you look at this, and this, and this, and this, it's a slasher. And it's like, yeah, okay, well, how
would you look at Alien with Ripley and Sigourney Weaver?
It's a science fiction horror. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a slasher movie, but there are people that would look at that and go, but when you look at this, and what about this? Just because something, in my opinion, something has elements of something, or there's a
because I've always put Ripley in as like an action hero.
Right. No,
almost like in a way, you know what I mean? Like, because really she is, by definition. And like, if you're going to break down like the things that Ripley, Sigourney Weaver's character did in that movie, that's an action hero, you know? And how she took out the.
Sorry.
No, that's it. I mean, so like, I wouldn't put Ripley in the final girl category. I would put her in the action hero category, because that's really what the character is. Right.
And I tend to agree with that. Now, can you look at Ripley and look at the dynamic of the movie and the story and see the parallels of she's the last one, she's facing she goes, of course you can. But then, is John McClane a final guy? You know what I mean? Right. Like where do we stop?
Where do you end?
Like, where do we end? Right. That's why I'm somebody that likes clearly defined. These are the rules, and just because there's a little bit of crossover and bleeding doesn't mean that this automatically becomes that. Because then nothing means anything, right? Then everything can be anything. Is Chevy Chase a final guy, from, Vacation, because he wanted to, I don't know, he was the last guy to, whatever. I'm sure you could find something in, some, comedy film that you could, point to, and, all that kind of stuff too, right? It's like, I get what people say, and I respect that. I'm not saying that you're wrong, because I understand that there is parallels, but I think what Clover had come up with, although it was very narrow, as the Wikipedia article says, it was clearly defined, and but that was 1992. So now, we move forward into the 21st century and 2023, we absolutely can probably make that a little less narrow than we had before. But I'm not one of those people that likes to blur too much, because to your point, right? It's like, I always see, like, Alien is a science fiction horror film for sure. Yeah. She's an action sort of star. Are there parallels to Final Girl? Sure. But I and maybe she'll be on somebody's list. Is Sarah Connor a final girl?
Same thing,
okay,
action hero.
Yeah,
sure. Especially by T2,
right?
Definitely more the action hero,
right,
type character.
Exactly. Is Terminator a romance because of that one scene between her and It's like just like, let's not become a Netflix category here, folks. Right, where you know what I'm talking about. You'll find the same movie in 10 different categories.
Is Brody and Hooper final guys at the end of Jaws?
Right. Right. No, exactly. And then if your answer is yes, then to me it's just like, well, what does that it doesn't mean anything anymore. That's my opinion, of course. So anyway, you want to bring up our lists and
you want to go back and forth reveal, or you just want to do it all in one shot?
I say we just bring it up and then we just talk about it, and we'll just go from the first one, and we'll just talk about our lists. So I'll bring it up and we'll wait till you can see it up on your end. Okay, there we are. The list is up.
It's probably a bit of a delay.
There is a bit of a delay for you, but you'll see it pop up here in a second. Let me know when you've seen it. Although I probably should. There you go. Should be up now for you. There?
Nope.
Not yet?
Give it a minute.
That's weird. It's up for me here.
No, there we go.
There you go. There you go.
I know everyone.
Oh my God, I can't even hear you. I can't. You're yelling so loud, I couldn't even hear.
I know, because everyone kept either DMing me or a couple people left the comment on the post I left on Facebook. I know who your number one is. I know who you're. I'm like, you're probably gonna, you're close, but no, she's. That's a tough one, man, but we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. So, again, the measuring stick for this list was just our favorites, right? If the measuring stick was, this, then our lists might be different. If the measuring stick was who had who was the most iconic, popular, who was the poster child for Final Girl, well, then Tony would probably have Laurie Strode on his list, because when you think of Final Girl, she is one of those archetypes, right? You know what I'm saying? She is one of those sort of poster kind of, things, right? When you look at like, I don't know who's been in the most consistent, or, the worst this, or the consistent this, or there's a lot of different ways you can measure it. We just chose, let's just have some fun and just talk about our favorites. And these are our favorites.
Yeah,
so,
I'll give you a politically correct answer and say, sure, I agree with that with Laurie Strode, but.
Well, I just mean like in the pop culture zeitgeist, right? When you hear a Final Girl, she's usually one of those people that will always pop up,
and she's definitely going to be on tons of people's lists.
100%, 100%.
So
yeah. So here, okay. So here's my list here. A number.
We're similar, mostly similar.
Similar, yeah. We're bang on with our number ones.
I'm actually surprised you didn't put Amy Steele on there. That surprised me.
Yeah, I didn't. I don't have anybody from Friday the 13th.
You don't have anybody from Friday the 13th.
I don't. Yeah. No, I don't. And it's not because I don't like Amy Steele from Friday the 13th Part 2. I think she's great. Yeah.
So you want to do honorable mentions before we get into our list? Because we did have a couple. Not many. We didn't have a lot. It was just a couple of honorable mentions that.
Or should we save it till after?
Yeah, we can save it.
Let's
go into it.
Let's go into it. So let's just go down the list here first of all. So for me, number 5 is Rachel Carruthers. Number 4, Sidney Prescott. Number 3, Laurie Strode. Number 2, Jess Bradford. And number 1, Nancy Thompson.
Yeah.
And then Tony,
and
your
mine
list?
was number 5, Sally Hardesty. 4, my girl Rachel from Halloween 4. 3, Sydney.
Yep.
Number 2, God, this was hard. 2 and 1 were the hardest for me because my heart was leaning towards Amy Steele, but I had to step back subjectively and look at the characters of Jeannie and Nancy. I'm not minimizing what she does against Jason in Part 2 and the showdown, but when I think of the perfect written Final Girl on screen that I enjoy watching the most, because of everything that the character does. Not only does she face the adversity, she goes and gets the adversity that she's going to face. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that to me just gave Nancy just a slight edge over Amy Steele's Jeannie in Friday the 13th Part 2. It's like comparing Michael Jordan to Kobe Bryant, 1 and 1A. You know what I mean? Like they're so close, but Amy Still's character didn't exactly go looking for Jason. You know, she just was forced into the situation and defended herself and fought him and overcame and whatnot. Nancy, I mean, that's basically her whole arc in Nightmare on Elm Street is she faces Freddy, and confronts him midway through the film and realizes that she can bring him into the real world. So she basically sets up her whole house to be this, booby trap place where she's going to bring Freddy and fight him one-on-one. And that to me right there, that just gave her the slight.
Well, we're going to talk about that. Yeah. So, totally.
Yeah. So our lists are pretty,
they're pretty comparable.
Pretty comparable. I think you and I are, in agreement when we think of the character of Sally from Chainsaw Massacre and Jess from Black Christmas, that those two girls, to me anyways, those two characters are what launched the final girl.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
For sure.
Whether it was coined in 74, that's neither here nor there, but because of the genre we're talking about, Texas and Black Christmas, to me, that's the starting point. For me, anyways, that's the starting point.
Right. Yes. No. You can go back to Peeping Tom. You can go back to Psycho.
Exactly.
But we're talking about the modern. Well, it's not modern anymore, but it certainly what became known as sort of the modern day slasher, right? And when you look at Texas Chainsaw and Black Christmas from 1974, you can see, that horror movies before those two movies,
it was different.
It was a bit different. I mean, yeah.
Not saying that there wasn't exploitative movies.
No, there were.
Sure.
Well, especially Texas Chainsaw is far more exploitative than Black Christmas. But yeah, no, you're right. So, okay, so number 5. Now let's talk about my 5
and my 4 because they're similar.
Right. Or do you want to talk about Sally Hardesty first because she's not on my list? But she's not on my list. So why don't you talk about Sally first and then we'll go to my 5 and your 4. Yeah.
Because we're pretty much parallel almost to the end. Yeah. So, I put her here for, obvious reasons, what we were just talking about. She kicked it off, as being the first final girl, being forced into a situation where she has to not only face her monster, but escape the family, and it wasn't just one, it was, Leatherface and his, brother and, the rest of the clan there in the Sawyer household. And, to this day, her scream there at the table, for that, 10 minutes or whatever it is, that it's very intense. And although again, in 1974, we weren't thinking along the lines of final girls and all that stuff like that. She obviously survives at the end of the movie, and I hate what they did to her character in this relaunch whatever sequel that they did about a year or so ago. I felt it didn't do the character any justice for bringing it back. I thought they would have done a bit more. So I actually felt at times her character was very shoehorned in. It's too bad that we didn't get an actual legitimate sequel with the character. I'm not sure why he didn't decide to go down that road. Instead of he went down the black comedy road when he did Chainsaw Part 2, with almost an entirely different, family pretty much. Look, you know what I mean? It wasn't the same, the Sawyer family that we knew from the first film.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
We got, God, what's that goofball's name that is his brother in that second film as well, too?
I can't remember.
I can't remember his name because I don't watch that one that often. But I know that he wanted to try something different, but I would have loved to have seen a little bit more with this character arc and like what did she go through afterwards? Did the Sawyer family try to hunt her down because she did escape at the end, and whatnot? She was the first to get away. And I think over the recent years, I can tell you growing up and even in the 90s there, when the term final girl was coined, she wasn't really talked about in conversations. It's only been like in the last decade where she's been given that credit of like, hey, you know what, really, it does start with her. Because
I was just going to say, out of sight, out of mind. It's the same problem with Black Christmas.
Right, and your character Jess there, exactly, out of sight, out of mind.
Because they never went on to do anymore.
No, it was just the one and done,
Yeah.
and it's just unfortunate that we couldn't see more with the character arc, but she's a strong character in the movie. Obviously the scene at the table is iconic and legendary. And of course, obviously the ending there where she's on the truck all bloodied up and screaming.
Yeah.
It's another great scene. And that's why I put her there in the number 5 spot. I don't know. Can you add anything to the character yourself?
Listen, I mean, Sally could have made my list. And like I said, if the measuring stick was different, she may very well would have. If we were talking about sort of symbolic impacts, in terms of what she means to the beginning of the subgenre, she'd be there. She wasn't on my list, not because I don't like her and not because what she goes through at the end is not intense, but to be honest with you, it really comes down to I sometimes forget about her. Like full disclosure, sure. I sometimes forget about her. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, Sally Hardesty. What the hell? Fuck it. Like, it's one of those things. Like how a lot of people would probably not even think of Jess from Black Christmas, right? Because Black Christmas never spawned, a franchise. It's not like she went on to do 900 sequels like Laurie Strode, and she was always in the pop culture everywhere, right? And so sometimes you need those reminders like, oh yeah, Jess from Black Christmas. I forgot about that. You know what I'm saying? Right? Jess makes my list now because obviously I'm very deep into the Black Christmas world now. But so that's why she's not there. But I mean, to your point, I can't even say it, any better than you did. I mean, it was intense. It was brutal. She fought back. She escaped. And it's almost like she's, when she's in the back of that pickup truck and she's driving away, there's like this laughing / crying / screaming. Like
she went insane.
Yeah. She's
from all of it. Like she's gone.
But it's almost like there's this relief and she can't fucking believe she actually made it. Do you know what I mean? But in that, holy fuck kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? She's fantastic. And rest in peace, of course. Because I think the actress passed away. How long ago did she pass away?
God, you would ask that.
A while ago. Anyway, no, she's great. She's great. Absolutely. So my number 5 is and your number 4 is Rachel Carruthers from Halloween. Rachel from Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, and Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. We are in agreement on this. I think, listen, we've talked about this before. Let's say it again. I'll get the ball rolling and then I'll hand it off to you. So, it's one of these things where I think it is a foregone conclusion. I think every Halloween fan is in universal agreement. At least I think the general consensus is that Rachel Carruthers was a great addition to the Halloween universe. When you have to quote unquote replace Laurie Strode, she was a great addition. And I think the dynamic between her and Jamie was great because she starts off kind of, I don't want to say full on resenting her foster sister, but
a typical teenager. I want to be with my boyfriend.
Right.
Yeah.
And she has an arc. She has an arc where she comes to actually, I think, appreciate her sister more because of what they've gone through and all that kind of stuff. And Dominic, whatever Gerard, we know why the creative, he wanted to do a psycho thing where we know you're attached to Rachel, so we're going to kill her early. Ooh. Well, that may have been your intention, but it fell flat. It fell flat, and fans didn't like it. And it maybe because you didn't, in Psycho, it's not like Marion's sister. That's her name, right? Marion? Yeah, that's, yeah. It's not like her sister was, had the personality of Tina. I mean, her sister was still a normal, so like yes, we might have been invested in Marion, but then when we have to go to her sister, what's her sister's name in the movie? God, it escapes me now. She's.
I almost said Sam Loomis, but that was the guy's name.
That's her. Yeah, that's her sister's. Yeah.
I know, and I keep forgetting that's how Carpenter.
The chat room will let us know what is Marion's sister's
What is Janet Leigh's sister's name in Psycho?
Yeah, Marion's sister. I forget her name now. Not the actress, but the character's name.
Character's name.
Yeah.
I think it is Marion, right?
No, Marion is Janet Leigh's character's name, I think.
Right. Yes, yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Chat room will let us know. They're looking it up right now.
No, well, we're also on a delay too.
That is true. That is true. Who was it? It was Lila.
Oh my, Lila?
Lila? Was it Lila?
No.
Lila? That was Lila. Lila? Yeah.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was Lila. Okay. Lyla, Lila. Yeah, everybody's saying Lila. Okay, great. So
No shit.
Lila was normal, right? She was, now it's also
Right.
1960 and they didn't make, but she was normal. She didn't come in going, and there's nothing against the actress, but the character wasn't likable. The character
Right.
felt like an expendable character that you introduce into a movie to be killed, not a character that you introduce into a movie to take over from the main character who's more grounded, the final girl, right? Mm-hmm. That's the problem. If Tina had been more likable as a character, if Tina had been more stable as a sort of a takeover, then maybe it would have worked. Maybe, I don't know. But there's a lot of factors and reasons why it didn't. But so it's disappointing that Rachel didn't get an opportunity to live on in Halloween 5, survive all the way to the end so we could continue to see that relationship built. So really, the reason why for me, and I think it's the same thing for you, and I'll let you take over here in a second, is that it's really about potential. What we see with Rachel in Halloween 4 is very good in the world of horror Halloween slasher movies. I mean,
Sure.
she's not going to win an Oscar or anything, but in the world of final girl, slasher movies, she's likable. She's cute. She's got a very. I've often said, and we talked about this. I've often said that you can. She's got a Nancy Thompson-ish vibe to her. There's an ishness there, not identical, but there's an essence. And we've often said that you might be able to put Heather Langenkamp in Rachel Carruthers' role and Rachel Carruthers in Nancy Thompson's role and totally make it work. Do you know what I mean? There's a girl next door, cute, kind of, reserved, but they just got to fight back, at the end. There's similar kind of things. So there was a lot of potential for Rachel Carruthers to go on and actually own this franchise had she been able to survive and go on with some of the stuff you were talking to me about yesterday. Tony, take it away.
Yeah, well, I've never been shied on this. She's next to Michael, obviously. She's my favorite. Besides Michael, she's my favorite character in this franchise.
Right.
I've never shied away from that. Everyone knows my love for Halloween 4 and my distaste for Halloween 5.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's like they did everything right in Halloween 4.
Yeah.
And they wrote the character strong. They set her up. And like I said this to one of the guys who follows us and watches us on my Facebook. I said, I'd love to sit there and ask this director and be like, bro, you literally had it, handed to you on a platter. How can you fuck Halloween 5 up that much?
I thought you were going to say
because of how bad Halloween or how good Halloween 4 is.
I thought you were going to say, how can you fuck Halloween 5 in the ass so hard?
Well, for real. I mean, how can you fuck it up what Halloween 5 should be to 4 is what Halloween 2 is to 1.
Yeah.
It's not as good as the original, but as a 1-2 punch, you can enjoy Halloween 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Halloween 4 came back so strong and really got everyone jacked for the franchise again. Halloween 5 should have been like that Halloween 2. Okay, it's not going to be good as 4, but you could sit there and watch Halloween 4 and 5 as a nice 1-2 punch and walk away going, I had fun. It was good.
Yeah.
But oh my God, like what the fuck, bro? Like how, like, I don't know, man. And it's like the what to talk about a what if, I know we did that with her character. That was our first what if. You think about, we often think about how, or we've talked about how she should have been the one to sacrifice Jamie for Jamie in Halloween 5, but we never really talk about, well, what if she lived and her character is available for Halloween 6? how does that change the dynamic of Halloween 6? Do you even have a character named Kara in it? Maybe it is Rachel, Jamie, and you can bring Tommy into the equation. Or maybe there is no Halloween 6 and they do a H2O type movie, bringing Rachel, bringing Jamie, Laurie, bringing Tommy Doyle as well. I mean, there would have been so much more potential there, and certainly you would have gotten Danielle Harris for Halloween 6. That would have been, I mean, then again, it was the 90s, but it would have been asinine to recast a character to play Jamie Lloyd when you've got, Ellie Cornell, who played Rachel in 2 films, and now you're going to recast another girl to play Jamie opposite her. That just would have been weird. So I think you would have probably had a really good chance of seeing the character in Halloween 6. And one could argue, if Rachel survives 5 and she survives 6, does she now become the definitive final girl in the franchise at this point?
That's a,
you know what I mean? Like an argument can be made for that. You know what I mean? Because she survived 3 films. You can make the argument that she really is the face of the franchise at this point. I'm not saying she would have gone on to do what Jamie Lee Curtis did career-wise. I mean, I'm not knocking the actress either. That's not like a slide at her.
No,
but, look, I mean, look, we know. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and whatever, but that would have been her, like Amy Steele. Same thing. Amy Steele could have gone on and done many more Friday the 13th, and she would have been the face of the franchise, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's unfortunate. I like you said, and I don't want to repeat it, but like to shoehorn in a shock kill that was it wasn't even earned. It was so cheap. It did such a disservice to what they set up for her in Halloween 4. And how great the character was written and everything the character went through. Like you talked about at the beginning, she's kind of that typical, I got to babysit tonight, and I don't want to babysit tonight. I got to go, I got that date with Brady, like she's into her own world, like a typical teenager. Yeah. But you watch the arc of Rachel as the movie progresses, and she becomes almost like a mother-like instinct to do anything she can to protect Jamie from this man that's trying to kill her.
Right.
And that to me is why, it's not even a debate for me. I mean, I'm not trying to upset the Laurie Strode fans out there. I get it. That's your girl. But for me, Rachel, that's my girl in this franchise. And it's just unfortunate we couldn't get a better arc with her when it came to Halloween 5, and maybe even a continuation into Halloween 6.
Yeah, no, look, I agree with everything you've said. And she's on my list at number 5 because of the potential. I really like her in Halloween 4. I don't even get a chance to like her in Halloween 5, no. And, really at the end of the day, what should have been done, and I understand that maybe there's obviously reasons why they may not have wanted to do this, obvious reasons why they would not have wanted to do this. But look, if Dominic wanted to shock people, kill Loomis. Donald Pleasance, was
that would have been a shocker.
That would have been a shocker. Donald Pleasance at that time was already, 70, right? Or, because he died in 95 and he was 75 when he died. So no, he was like maybe 69, 70. He was already.
That's a good point.
That would have been.
You need to make a video.
Now
on
again,
that.
Yeah, I probably will. Now again, you don't. Now there's obviously there would be reasons why that Mustafa may not have wanted to do that, or even Donald may not have wanted to agree to that, or whatever. There may have been some,
but it would have shocked the shit out of everyone.
From a writing perspective, it would have shocked people, especially now in retrospect, because of the internet and social media and all that. I mean, it would have really sort of had a life of its own, because he was.
Oh my God! Right? Could you imagine, like, people like maybe not wanting to go see Halloween 5, but then everyone's coming out, they killed Loomis, and now everyone who didn't want to go see it is going to go see it for the fact that Loomis dies.
Yeah. And again, and again, it's not that legacy characters die, it's how they die, right? I don't mean he just falls and, trips over his own cane. It's meaningful. It's meaningful. Michael gets him. It's meaningful. It's powerful. They have a moment, not a cheesy moment, not a cringy moment, but a real moment. You really play into it. That's what you should have done. And then that leaves Rachel, right, as
Jamie vulnerable.
And Jamie vulnerable, but it leaves Rachel as that, sort of almost like an authority figure now in terms of the Michael sort of
Yeah.
Legacy. And so no, I agree with you. I think she was a character that was terrific in 4, wasted in 5, and she could have been the heart that the later sequels needed. I mean, look, 6 may have still ended up as 6 with the fucking cult and shit, and who knows what would have happened. But having Rachel there would have made it better,
or 6 could have easily been H2O. They may not have done the 6.
Right.
6 could have been the H2O, and you bring
who knows,
Laurie back into the equation.
Right now you got Laurie, Jamie, and Rachel.
And now Jamie's dealing with the fact that her mother didn't die.
Right.
There's a resentment there. There's resentment from Rachel that the fact that she went into hiding. You could still have Hartnett's character in there as well too, that he's discovering now, like, what? I have a fucking sister.
Yeah.
There's a lot you could have done with that. So technically you could have avoided 6 if you had done 5 right, left the man in black out, left the tattoos out, so you didn't have to explain that shit. Yep. And like you said, have that shock beginning of like, oh fuck, we killed Loomis.
No tattoos appear in Halloween 4. It's only 5 is the one that threw everything off.
Fucks everything, right.
I've said that before. People have tried to challenge me on that, and I'm like, no, it's 5, because you can look. 6 happened because of 5, and H2O happened because of 6, and Resurrection happened because of H2O, and Rob Zombie's films happened because of Resurrection. So you can go all the way back to 5.
Bad domino effect.
100%. Anyway, let's move on here to our number 4. So,
because that's my number 3.
Yeah, your number 3, my number 4. So my number 4 and your number 3 is Sidney Prescott from the Scream franchise. And I will get the ball. I will say this. I will say this.
Good old Canadian girl.
Yes, Nev Campbell from Guelph, Ontario, which is only about 30 minutes from me.
Nice.
So I was actually in Guelph last summer. I was visiting her family. No, I wasn't visiting her family.
They got igloos and stuff up there?
They do, yes. That's right. It's all melted now, of course. They're just lying naked on their lawns. But anyway.
Right. There we
go. Nev Campbell, yes, great Canadian gal from Guelph, Ontario. And I will say that I chose, even though I do not have the same emotional attachment to the Scream franchise as a lot of people do. I don't know what they call Scream fanatics, ghost heads, screamers. I don't know. I appreciate the franchise. My favorite is still the first movie, and I can watch the rest of the movies and enjoy them, for what they are. I will acknowledge and say that the Scream franchise has yet to have a gigantic stinker. They have yet to have a resurrection. They've yet to have a Halloween 5, which is in and of itself very impressive when you are 6 movies in. Now, some movies may be better than the others, but they have yet to have their, here we go. You know what I mean? Their Freddy's dead, or, they've yet to have that, which shows you the strength of the writing and the strength of the characters and the franchise.
Well, a lot you got to give credit to Wes Craven and Kevin,
Kevin Williamson. Yeah, for sure. And so, although Sidney was not in the most recent film, I've yet to see it. Although they were not in, she was not in the most recent film. By all accounts, a lot of fans really. It's another, at least consistent, kind of solid entry supposedly. So that's good. But the movie she's been in, I put her at number 4. To be honest with you, I could easily have swapped her out with Laurie Strode, but I will explain why when we get to Laurie, why I put Laurie in 3. Sidney, the character, has the fortunate, rare, and dare I say, very rare, fortunate luck of being in good movies. Every movie is good. You know what I mean? Like, now there's degrees of
solid.
Which it's solid, right? There's degrees of which one is better than the other, sure. Yeah. But even 3, which is arguably the weakest of the 6, even 3's not a resurrection, right? 3's not a Halloween 5. 3's not a Freddy's Dead, right? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, exactly. It didn't do like what Halloween 5 did. It didn't go so far off the tracks that you're like, what?
Right. It's still, why it's weaker, but it's relative.
You can watch it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, you have to give it to this character. I mean, consistent all the way through, vulnerable, fighting back, and there she is doing it over 25 years, right? Over 25 years, whereas Rachel is more about potential. Sidney is about endurance and being impressive. There's a lot of parallels there with Laurie, but I'll get to Laurie in a second. But I got to give it up. She hasn't been in a bad movie in, 3 different timelines, or you know what I mean? It's been very consistent all the way through and enjoyable to watch a character's arc who begins in 1996 and potentially ends last year. Like it's nice to see that it's not a different version of that character from back here, and that's why, again, like I said, I could put her ahead of Laurie for that very reason, but I didn't, and we'll get to the reason why here in a second. But anyways, your number 3 is Sidney Prescott, Tony.
Yeah, I mean, not to repeat everything you said, because you pretty much said everything I was going to say, is that, everything, it's rare. You really can't even with any of the other girls on our list. I guess you could with Laurie, but we'll get to her in a moment on a lot of the mistakes they did with timelines and stuff. Yeah. But, at least the one thing you can say with the Sidney character is that she's consistent. The character is consistent from 1 to 5. You don't have to retcon any timelines. You don't have to change anything around to fit the character back in. If she decides to come back for 7, I'm sure it'll work. I haven't seen 6 yet, but by all accounts, I would assume that it's not like you have to we got to change this because this, none of that happens. Right. So the character can easily fit back into the franchise, and, you don't get that, you really don't. If you bring Rachel back and not saying I would be disappointed to see the character back in a Halloween movie if they were to but you have to retcon 5 in order to do that. You have to pretend that this doesn't exist. And how many times do we go back to that well? You know what I mean? We've seen it done twice in the Halloween franchise. Are we going to really do this a third fucking time? Just because we want to see Michael on the big screen. I mean, it becomes ridiculous after a while. Unfortunately, like we talked about a moment ago with Halloween 5, they didn't get it right. It is what it is, and we always have to do the what if, the missed opportunity.
That's it.
But with Sidney and the Scream franchise, like you said, 1 and 2 are very solid. 4 are very solid for me. I do enjoy 5. I've actually, Christy and I watched 5 here recently, not too long ago. And I'm like, this is not that bad. It's actually pretty solid. And even though Nev's character is pretty much absent in the film, I'm not missing it. And I love me some Nev Campbell. I love the character, but I'm not going damn, I wish I had more, because you know why? I've got 4 movies where it's all centered around her.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So this was the way they wrote this, as far as the passing of the torch to this new, Jenna Ortega and the girl who plays Sam, Billy Loomis's daughter. I don't know her name. I'm sorry.
Melissa Barrera, I think.
Or something like that. Yeah. They did a really good job of passing that torch to those girls. And then the rest of the cast around them, I was like, damn, they did a fucking really good job with that shit. Yeah, so I am anxious to see 5. I am obviously anxious to see my girl Kirby back in the equation.
6, and
see, or 6. Yeah. But yeah, I pretty much ditto on everything you said with the character.
Yeah. It's probably the most consistent final girl. One of the most consistent final girls of all time. Yep. And if Nev Campbell never comes back to play Sidney Prescott, it ends beautifully because of what the line means when what's her face there?
Oh, she's like, "Will I be all right?" And
yes, and she says, "Eventually." Yeah. That it has, because she's the one, because she's been through it. She's living proof that you will eventually be. It's a great that line. Will I be okay? Eventually. There's the passing of the torch. There it is. Yep. That's it. You do not need Sidney ever again. From a story perspective, I know from a nostalgic perspective, I totally get it. And it doesn't mean that you can't write something where it makes sense and it's properly motivated and she comes back and everything's great and the fans are happy. Of course you can do that. But if you didn't do that, it's not like, Sidney didn't really get her due at the end. No, not at all. I mean, you had a movie. They built an entire set to look like Stu's fucking house, right? Yeah. So you bring it full circle back to there. There's a little bit of nostalgia. She's in there. She's walking around. Oh, she's in Stu's house. Oh, this is so cool. You know what I mean? And, there they are. And and it's happening again, and this is really cool. And then that great line, passing of the torch, a young, impressionable girl, Billy Loomis's daughter, walks up to her and says, after being through all this shit, am I going to be okay? Eventually, basically saying, yeah, you will.
You will.
Don't worry.
No.
We don't need to see her from a story perspective. That's it. That's a great button. That's a great exclamation point. That's a great bow on her legacy. That's great, right? So one of the most, if not the most consistent final girls of all time, period, hands down. All right, my number 3, we'll quickly get through this. I put Laurie Strode at number 3. I could have easily put Sidney in this spot for all the reasons that I said. I put Laurie Strode at number 3 because really, I was saying, at the end of the day, Laurie Strode, because of Jamie Lee Curtis's commitment to the franchise over several different timelines, because Halloween was one of the first, certainly the first, the movie that people point to be sort of the beginning of the golden age of slasher films. And it was her first movie that she ever did. And she, when she dies, she will be known as the Halloween actress dies, like she's often said. That is true. It's her most successful role. It's what she's known for most.
Now it'll be Academy Award winning Halloween.
That's true. That's true. Yes, that's very true. But really it is about, because she has been doing this for 44 years over multiple movies and multiple timelines. She has become a zeitgeist symbol of the final girl. So, when it's like if you were to open a dictionary and see, to final girl, her face would be there. Be
the face of it,
right? You know what I'm saying? So, I have to, and because I'm a big Halloween fan and it's my favorite horror movie of all time, the original, obviously I will always have a respect for the character, and what the character means, certainly in part 1 and 2, and she, and yeah, I mean, there's a respect there, that it's Laurie Strode, whether you like her or hate her or, whatever, she's one of the goats, right? One of the I guess I shouldn't say goat, because really you can't have more than one goat. Yes, you can't. No, you can't. There's either a greatest of all time or there isn't. Anyway, but unless you're tied. But
unless you're basketball fans and you're talking about LeBron and Michael.
That's true. It depends on what we're measuring, but certainly she is one of the greats. She's one of the greats, and to see her do it from the age of 19 all the way to the age of 63 or 64 is pretty cool. That's a pretty cool thing. Where she loses marks for me, and this isn't Jamie Lee Curtis's fault, this is just how the Halloween franchise became a fucking shit show, is she doesn't have, which is why I said you could easily put Sidney in this spot and put Laurie in number 4. I could easily have done that, but the legacy and sort of the symbol of Laurie Strode in the pop culture horror slasher zeitgeist is why it sort of edges Sidney out a little bit. But if you were to remove that, Sidney, I mean, has got something over Laurie, and that is consistency in one timeline. Right. Laurie, I mean, she's got Halloween 1 and Halloween 2, and then H2O and Resurrection, and then 18 kills and ends. There's 3 different timelines, right? Yeah. There's 2 different timelines.
There's 3. There's just one of them she's not a part of as it continues on with 4, 5, and 6.
That's true, but that's still part of.
She's technically connected as far as the character goes.
That's true. So there's that timeline. Now H2O is connected to 1 and 2 only, so there's a timeline. And then yes, of course, the ends, kills, and 18, and so it's hard for me, and it's just the way I think. It's always been hard for me to get emotionally attached to Laurie on a level that I should be, because it's not the same. Like, it's like what happens when you remove Halloween 2, right? It's Halloween 2 never, like, there's so much juggling and maneuvering around, and no, that's not no, Halloween 2 happened. No, Halloween 2 didn't happen. No, and it's just like it feels messy and incomplete, and I just, the emotional attachment I want to have with Laurie, that you get with Sidney, because there's consistency there. So everything that happened to Sidney through 1, 2, 3, 4 is still canon. So you're watching a character in Scream 5 that's been through all that. You're watching a character in Scream 5 that has that history, that has that, that emotional trauma and those residual effects. The Laurie we're introduced to in Halloween 18 never went through the events of Halloween 2. I understand why they made the decision to get rid of it. I totally get it. And some of the decisions of reason why I totally support. But I do understand those that are like, would it really be bothering you 40 years later when there was just 3 people that died? You know what I'm saying? I get it. And would the town really be going fucking crazy and really the town would really, you know what I'm saying? I totally get it. The events of Halloween 2 never happened. There was no massacre. There was no Jimmy. Nobody died. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, yeah, you can, cherry pick certain things. Sure. But I get it. So for me as a Halloween fan,
it's true, because like if what you just said is very true about regarding the 18 film, is that if what they're trying to tell me that these people are living in this type of fear because of one night that happened 40 years ago on Halloween, Halloween night, but I gotta tell you, that's the safest fucking town in America to live in. That you're telling me there's been no murders, no crime, no nothing since that night.
Yeah,
that these people have lived in shelter and fear because of one night that's got them so fucked in the head that the town is that's the best town in the fucking world. Haddonfield is the best town ever.
It's why I think, maybe not for the average moviegoer, but it's why, and I don't want to speak for all Halloween fans, but it's why for me, even though I agree in principle, I agree with removing Halloween 2. Intellectually, I understand it. I like the idea of going back to the roots and getting rid of, the brothers. I get all that. But I also, on the other side of the coin, I too feel that really, it's why when you hear lines in Halloween Kills, like, he's terrified my family for 40 years, and it's just like,
he's basically been locked up. How has he terrified your family?
Right. It feels like you needed that massacre from Halloween 2. I understand. I understand why Haddonfield Memorial's going fucking crazy in Halloween Kills. Even the doctors and nurses are on edge. Right. Look at all the nurses and doctors he killed. Look at all the patients he killed. A security guard. Now your body count goes from 3 to 16, and it's like, whoa. And then you got fucking the neighbor and the Elrods and all. Now it's like, okay, I get it. Without all that, it feels like we're overselling it, and I'm not the only one that feels that way. I know you feel that way. I know some people in the chat room feel that way. And so again, I can see both sides of the coin, right? So for me, that is why Laurie Strode is not higher. Because if Laurie Strode had been in one timeline consistently in solid movies like Sidney Prescott, she might be number one. She might be number one. And like I said, the only thing that keeps her or it keeps Sidney at 4 and not 3 is just because Sidney doesn't have the zeitgeist, sort of cachet, I guess I'll say, that Laurie Strode does, just because of the years and all that kind of stuff. But and we know how you feel about Laurie Strode. Good night, everybody, as Tony keeps quiet.
Yes. I will be nice.
You'll be nice. Let's move on to your number 2. And
I what I also noticed about our 5 and your 5. It's very consistent to what we're attracted to. Mine has more heavily blonde favored. Yours has more heavily brunette favored. I don't know if you caught on. I don't know if you caught on to that.
No, I didn't catch on to that. I didn't. I was
because I know you're a big brunette guy.
Yes, that is true. That is true. Not that there's anything wrong with blondes for all you blondes out there.
I love my blonde, so I'm good. But I just noticed that. I'm like, hey, wait a second. I've got more heavily favored blondes. He's got more. That it stayed true to our
No,
personalities.
it's something I noticed.
That's just a coincidence.
Yeah. No, it is. And it's something I noticed when I was, when you're going through puberty and you're a teenager, and you're getting into girls and that kind of stuff. It's when I first noticed it about myself. Like I actually had a conscious awareness that all the girls that not that I haven't been attracted to blondes, but generally speaking, I noticed that about myself when I would always, notice, if there was a girl I had, the hots for. Do people even say that anymore? I'm totally dating myself. When I liked a girl, when I had a crush on a girl, 9 times out of 10.
For you youngsters out there, that's
right.
what we used to say back in the day. We had the hots.
When I liked a girl, 9 times out of 10, she was a brunette. And Jennifer Love Hewitt, who I had a big crush, she was my celebrity teenage. She's a brunette. You know what I mean? And of course, the woman I'm with now, who I've been with for 12 years, she's a brunette. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's funny. I'm trying to think, have I ever dated a blonde? I've been with like dirty blonde, but not like full on like Suzanne blonde, Summers blonde.
Not like Chrissy blonde.
No,
blonde.
No. But not because I'm adverse to it. It's just because it just didn't happen or whatever, right? Sure. So yes, some guys are blonde guys, brunette guys. Some guys are ass guys, leg guys. Just we just part of
feet. Some guys like feet.
Some guys
I can't figure that out.
Some guys like feet. I don't know.
Do you know there's a girl who's making, I'm not even fucking kidding, millions
fart in a glass?
Feet.
Oh.
No, selling pictures of her feet.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me.
Millions. I'm like, this is how stupid we've become in society. This girl's, and I'm gay. No more power to the girl, man. She's making money.
More power. That's what you got to do.
All right, number 2.
So number 2.
You want to go first?
Number 2. No, you go first. Number 2. So you had touched on this at the top of the show, but here you go. Ginny, Amy Steele, Friday 13th, part 2.
Pains me to do that too, man. I love her. I love my Amy Steele, but
she's great.
We'll get to number 1 since ours is similar on why Nancy's won. She falls into the what if as well too, like Rachel, they wanted her back for Friday the 13th part 3. She thought her career was going to go in a different direction, which unfortunately it didn't. And it makes you wonder, had she come back, there's a lot of things that probably might have not happened had she come back. I'm not necessarily saying they wouldn't have brought the hockey mask in, but as far as who she knew who Jason was, it was in the sack.
Right.
She just knew that the guy who came after her.
She knew him in the sack.
She knew him in the sack, baby. And I would have loved to have seen, and I know part 3 was supposed to take place at a hospital, if I'm not mistaken, as well too.
Something like that, yeah.
Something similar to what happened in Halloween 2, but with Friday the 13th part 2, like the aftermath of what had just happened on at the camp counseling training center. And it's just unfortunate. Now, as far as the character, I mean, she's obviously a heavily fan favorite in the Friday the 13th franchise as the favorite final girl. I mean, I know you got your Adrienne King fans out there, but when you're talking the final girl of Friday the 13th, Amy Steele is pretty much at the top of the mountain on that. You might have, some of the Alice fans out there, but it's a very small percentage. Most Friday fans or fans of the franchise, that's the girl they go to. And I mean, obviously she was well written. She fought back against Jason, the first one to fight back against Jason and beat him with a little help from Paul. I'm not gonna, not forget Paul. He did help. Paul,
yeah, that's right.
But I mean, I love the character the moment I saw her. I just, she was a great character, strong character in the movie. Just fucking damn, man. I would have loved to have seen if they brought her back. It just, it's again like the Rachel thing. What if, and they see, at least we're in Halloween fucked up the character. Friday really, they wanted her back.
Yeah, they did.
It's not like they wanted her back.
That's right.
And, who knows what the fuck would have happened, man. Would we have gotten a 5, or would 4 have been the final one? Would it have been just two, 3, and 4, and Amy's character kills him finally at the end of 4. Maybe we don't get a Tommy Jarvis. Actually, we probably don't. You know what I mean? If she survives 3 and is continues on to 4, and she definitely would have been the face of the franchise. There's no question about that. And I know she kicks herself for it a little bit. I know. There's no way she's not going to tell me. I would love if I ever get a chance to meet her, and I don't want to ask it in a disrespectful way, but if I get the chance to meet her, I'd be like, in hindsight, do you wish you had done, continued on, because you would have been the face of the franchise.
Right.
I don't think she realized how big it was going to become in the 80s.
Right.
And who knows what that would have done for Amy's career wise, but hey, you know what? At the end of the day, if you're the face of the franchise, like Friday the 13th, that's nothing to sneeze at.
No,
either.
Not at all. No,
and it's just unfortunate. What about you?
Look, I agree. I think she's, I don't know why I didn't put a Friday the 13th girl on my list. I just was thinking from the heart and from the mind and who I like. And again, if we had a different measuring stick there, she probably would be on there. I think she is I'm growing to like her more and more. I am. I think, I was going to say, I think over Chris, even in 3, she's definitely, she has a strength about her, yes. that you like.
But an innocence as well, too.
An innocence,
yes. Kind of a combination.
Yeah. And I sometimes wonder if that's just Amy Steele, because it feels like there is a natural, there's something. I often
she almost wasn't even acting like if you met Amy in person, that's really her in real life.
Yeah,
right?
it kind of feels that way, and it's an attractive quality for a Friday for a final girl. So I think it's a great choice, and she definitely is a lot of people's favorite, and I think for that reason, I think she wasn't a damsel in distress. She wasn't, she wasn't.
You know what? Because what
cheesy.
happened
she wasn't
after
cheesy.
Part 2.
Yeah.
What happened after Part 2 is the final girls became shoehorned in. Like you expected it to happen. Like you knew, whereas Amy's character was it was organically written and she was just there.
Right.
Kind of like Alice's as well too, but both characters went up against 2 different people. Alice went up against Mrs. Voorhees.
Right.
Amy was the first to go up against, or Jeannie, I'm sorry. Jeannie was the first to go up against Jason. But it was natural, like you were saying, you know what I mean? It wasn't forced in, like, okay, now this is the check marks that we got to do with Friday the 13th. We need a, final girl, or eventually with Tommy Jarvis, final guy.
Yeah.
It just felt very shoehorned in, you know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas Jeannie it was just natural, and it would have been natural to watch the story continue on afterwards with her character and the what ifs.
Yeah. No, I get it. So my number 2 is Jess Bradford from the original Black Christmas from 1974. This is obviously because Black Christmas it never spawned a franchise. It never had any official sequels, but there definitely is a sequel. And there's another one. There's the tail end of our sequel.
It did what Halloween should have done.
Right, exactly. Right? Yes, no, I totally agree. But the reason
I just pissed off everybody.
Yeah. But the reason, look, I mean, it's very clear when, I think part of the reason why, and I've obviously having directed really the only co-directed, I have to give my brother from another mother, Bruce, obviously I have to include him. Because, we just finished co-directing the first half of our sequel. We obviously have been living in the Black Christmas world for a few years now, and a part of the reason why, yes, it's a slow moving, slow burn, early 70s sort of older kind of storytelling, and people either really like it and appreciate it and get it, or people find it a snooze fest and boring and don't like it, and that's understandable. That's totally fair. But the reason why Black Christmas and Jess Bradford are not in the pop culture zeitgeist, like Sidney Prescott or a Laurie Strode or a Heather Langenkamp, or even, a Ginny and a Rachel or a Sally, is because it never spawned any sequels. So even though Rachel wasn't in the majority of the films, even though Ginny wasn't in the majority of the films, the franchise still kept going. So people were still aware of the franchise and revisiting those other films in the franchise. Black Christmas happened in 1974, and then there wasn't another movie until 2006, 22 years later. So there was nothing, even if there had been Black Christmas sequels throughout the 80s, Jess Bradford, even if Olivia Hussey had never come back and the character had never returned, Jess Bradford, like Ginny, would be well known. Because people would be revisiting that movie because of the other films in the franchise and that kind of stuff. So we sometimes forget that obviously Black Christmas predates Halloween by 4 years. There was, not to take anything away from Halloween, but according to Bob Clark, the director and the writer of, the director of Black Christmas, he said that he had a conversation with John Carpenter, and John Carpenter asked him, what would are you planning on doing a sequel? And Bob Clark said, no, I don't think so. I didn't get into, because he had already done a couple of horror movies before Black Christmas. He did Black Christmas. He wants to do some other things. And he said, no, I didn't get into the business to just be a horror director. I'm probably going to do some other things. He obviously did. He did Porky's, A Christmas Story, but John Carpenter had asked him, he said, well, if you were to do a sequel, do you have any ideas or like what you do? Yeah, it's just two directors shooting the shit, talking. And Bob Clark said, I said to him, I would probably set it a year later. Billy's been institutionalized. He was caught, after that night, he, was caught, and he was institutionalized for a year or 2 years, whatever it was. And, I think it was a year, because it was the following autumn that he escapes, and he escapes on Halloween, and I'd call the movie Halloween. Well, when Bob Clark said that, of course, all the Halloween fanboys got their knickers in a twist. Like, don't. Well, we have to remember that John Carpenter didn't come up with the idea of Halloween. It wasn't John Carpenter's brainchild. It was Irwin Yablans' brainchild. Now, I'm not saying that Irwin Yablans stole it from Bob Clark. Not at all. I don't even know if the two have ever talked, right? But Irwin Yablans wanted to do a low-budget horror movie. And Irwin Yablans thought, hey, why don't we do a low budget?
Babysitters.
Right. And Irwin Yablans thought, why don't we do a low budget horror movie, very theater of the mind, and why don't we do it about babysitting? Because babysitting was a very popular thing. And then it was a little while after that, in the development of that Irwin Yablans just thought, hey, why don't we set it on Halloween? And there isn't a movie called Halloween. That's crazy. There's no movie called Halloween.
Imagine
why don't
that.
We set
By
on
1978, not one movie is called Halloween.
Right. So
that's bonkers.
It's crazy. So he thought, hey, you know what? Why don't we do that? It had nothing to do with Bob Clark or anything like that. So, and Bob Clark has even said, listen, maybe subconsciously when John Carpenter and Deborah Hill went to write it, maybe they, he's locked up and he escapes and whatever. But even John Carpenter has said, listen, I got the idea from Michael Myers when I was, on like a field trip back in the day when he was in film school or something. And he was at like a psychiatric ward. And you remember seeing this, kid that was like really blank and pale and all this kind of stuff. And, who knows, right? But Bob Clark has even said, listen, John Carpenter, the music, Michael Myers, all the stuff that makes Halloween amazing. That's all John. I mean, I'm not saying he stole my idea. I'm just saying we had that conversation. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, I digress. But Black Christmas predates Halloween by 4 years. There's a lot of tropes that you see in Black Christmas that, have become commonplace in slasher films since. It was one of the first. And Jess Bradford was one of the first final girls. She predates Laurie Strode. Her and Sally Hardesty are right neck and neck. Because I think Texas Chainsaw was released, I think maybe a month before Black Christmas.
October 1st, 1974. Black Christmas, December 20th, 1974.
There you go. So 2 months prior. So, for all intents and purposes, they're right there, and they are the OGs in their respected sort of areas. And I put her at number 2 because I think Black Christmas is highly underrated. In my opinion, I think it's a terrific, eerie, creepy, it's not a Friday the 13th. It's not a blood, guts, and gore. If that's what you love, that's great. That's not Black Christmas. There's people that have watched It's Me, Billy and been like, oh, there should be more blood. No, there shouldn't be more blood because this is what it is. If that's what you want, that's fair. Black Christmas isn't for you. We made sure that our film stylistically felt like it lived in the same universe. So we can't turn It's Me, Billy into a slice fest. That would just be, it doesn't make any, now we're doing Xmas 06. But anyway, I digress again. It's very easy for me to do when it comes to Black Christmas because I'm so involved with it at the moment. But I put her here because I think, again, more symbolically, I think at the end of the day, I do like Olivia Hussey in the role, and I do think it's an underrated film, and I do think it's an underrated role. So there is that is there for me for sure. Obviously it's not as intense as, say, Sally Hardesty's moment at the table. It doesn't have, the consistency of a Sidney Prescott over multiple films. It doesn't have nearly the legacy of a Laurie Strode. And it doesn't even have the vulnerability of Nancy and then fighting back. I think Jess was strong. She was, pregnant. And there was a bit of a role reversal there because Jess, back in the 70s, although not unprecedented, I think it was more common for the men, generally speaking, that if, they would want their significant other to have an abortion. I think the woman is more likely to want to keep the baby, whereas the man is more likely to want you to get rid of it. So in Black Christmas, there was a bit of a role reversal there, whereas Jess wanted to get rid of it and Peter wanted her to keep it. So she was very independent, very strong. And of course she fought back at the end and killed the wrong person, but she did fight back at the end. So symbolically, I think we sometimes forget how important that role is to the legacy of the slasher subgenre. Without Black Christmas, you may not have had a Halloween. It's entirely possible. Sure. So that's why she's at my number 2.
Good shit.
Anything to say on Black Christmas, Jess Bradford?
I've only watched that movie once, which was with you.
No, you've watched it more than that. You've watched it? No? Oh, okay, fair enough.
I kept confusing it with...
When a Stranger Calls?
Yeah. I kept confusing it with that, with what's her name, Laka's wife from Taxi.
Carol Kane. Yes, Carol Kane. Yeah.
I kept confusing it with that. So I've only seen Black Christmas once with you. I gotta get around. No, twice with you.
Twice.
Didn't we do a rewatch when you released it to me? Okay.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
So I've watched it twice with you.
Yeah.
It's not a movie that I can recall as quickly,
Of course.
And I'm certainly not as knowledgeable on it as like you are.
Yeah.
But everything you said, as far as like, it's like I said to that person today in the comment section, I said, if I'm going to give Sally the edge as far as her being technically the first, it's only by default because Texas Chainsaw was released a month and a half before Black Christmas.
Right. And that's why.
That's it. It's a default because of that fact. It's not because it's just the timing.
Exactly.
That's it,
Exactly.
I mean, obviously, you're not going to release a movie called Black Christmas, especially at that time. They weren't going to release it in October,
right?
You know what I mean? They would have waited for Christmas,
right?
Which would have made sense.
Well, that's just it. And today's, like we've said, the measuring stick is who are our favorite final girls. But then there's that little caveat that we go in and we, the order will depend on what makes a great final girl, and sometimes legacy will have an effect on our
sure.
order. And again, you could put Laurie at number 2 and Jess at number 3 because clearly Laurie has the legacy and the history but you may not have a Laurie if it wasn't for Jess. So that's why for me, I put her at number 2. And full transparency could also be because I'm really neck deep into the Black Christmas world right now. And so I'm invested, and I'm and that kind of thing.
That's
for
true.
sure.
That is true.
I gotta say it absolutely some bias might be coming out there. But I also want to give the character some love and the movie some love because I do think it's underrated, not appreciated enough. Our number ones, Tony. Our number ones.
You want to do our honorable mentions before we do number one?
Yes, honorable mentions. Okay, Tony, take it away.
One of my honorable mentions was going to be Jessica Biel's character from Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yep.
Definitely a great final girl. You know, and a different type. You know, we talked about this before when talking about the remake of Chainsaw Massacre. You know, when you look at Sally and Aaron, I think is her name in Chainsaw.
I think it's something like that. Yeah.
I think it is Aaron.
Yeah.
When you look at Sally and Aaron, they're two different archetypes. Aaron is more fight. I'm gonna fight. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna get dirty. I'm gonna get gritty with this. I'm going in there. I'm gonna save my friends. Very, very well written character, strong character, played well by Jessica Biel, and for sure definitely deserved an honorable mention on the list of final girls. Yeah,
absolutely. Another, I would put her on my list as well. Another honorable mention is Jennifer Love Hewitt from I Know What You Did Last Summer. I think J Love. I think you just throw her. I don't think she's. Listen, Julie James would never be on a
She's the GOAT. She's on the Mount Rushmore.
No. Listen, my 19-year-old self would probably have said yes, but
Dave at 19 would have been like, hell yeah.
Yeah, Mount Rushmore. Fuck it. Just put Julie James, and Julie James. No, but I think of course in the 90s, she ain't no Sidney Prescott, but she definitely for at least one movie had captivated some late 90s horror fans.
Maybe a good reboot here. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Apparently,
might redeem the character a little bit.
Apparently, Jennifer Love Hewitt nor Freddie Prinze Jr. Had been approached about returning. That was a fault. Yes, they got ahead of it. And it leaked. And Freddie Prinze was like, I haven't been asked yet. I'm sure there's been discussions now. But yeah, hopefully they do come back. I think they will. If the money's right and the story's good.
But Dave, what are you waiting for?
What are you waiting for, huh? What are you waiting for?
Unfortunately, Scary Movie ruined
Listen,
that
do you know how
every time I think of that, I think of the girl in Scary Movie.
Dude, listen, people know that back in my teen years, I was into Jennifer Love Hewitt, obviously. I even have both her CDs. Her music CDs.
Oh, that's right. I forgot she did it.
She has a CD from like the mid 90s called Let's Go Bang.
Yeah. Well, she was.
It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that.
Right. She was in the pop style.
Yeah, I mean, she's an okay singer. but she only had two albums.
Like Jessica Simpson type thing.
Yeah, but Jessica Simpson was far more successful at music than no. I mean, she was fine. But yeah, anyways, you're a fucking teenager, right? And you get your hands on anything you can at that time. And she was very big at that time. So, it was very easy. Now, I mean, I don't even know what the hell. I know she sort of kind of semi-retired to raise, I think she's married, got 3 kids now or something. And I don't even know what the hell she's doing. But anyway, so number one. Oh, yeah. So.
Well, I got another honorable mention.
Yeah.
All right. My other honorable mention is Scout, Taylor Compton. Because I do like her portrayal of Laurie Strode in the Halloween movies. Mm-hmm. She didn't try to mimic Jamie Lee Curtis. If there was a bright spot to the Rob Zombie Halloween films, it is the way Scout portrayed Laurie Strode.
I'd agree with that.
In both movies, okay?
I'd agree with that.
You get this vulnerable girl that you believe is this 17-year-old kid, very likable, easy to attach to in the first one. It's no fault to her own. She did exactly what she was told to do as an actress, and the scenes that Rob wanted to create. So I can't fault her for that. But what she gave Rob was phenomenal. Every scene she's in, she carries every scene very well, especially in the first film. And even in the second film, we've talked about this, her portrayal of Laurie Strode is really the first time we ever see what the immediate aftermath was like, and what that did to the character. You know what I mean? The first time we see the aftermath in the Laurie Strode character originally was H2O, which was 20 years later. But Scout gave us that immediate, what she was dealing with, the nightmares and the dreams. That dream sequence in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, by far still one of the best scenes ever made in the franchise. Just the intensity of that, the intensity of the scene, Michael stalking Laurie. It's like, bro, why couldn't you just, I get you didn't want to do a duplicate of 2, but my God, that's so good. But then everything just sinks like the Titanic after that. So I did want to at least give her a nice shout out, because she did a hell of a job, filling big ass shoes, Jamie Lee Curtis, obviously. And what she gave us really solid performances in both films. And I can't hate on that. She did what she was asked to do, and, the rest is on Rob. How about that?
That's true. That is true. You got
anybody else you want to?
Well, I was going to say Danielle Harris, because I think Danielle Harris for Halloween 4 and 5, at such a young age to be able to carry both those movies was pretty impressive. And again, untapped potential. I know she's been in the Hatchet films and things like that, but she'll always be known for her Halloween films the most. And it would have been nice if they had done her right as well. And maybe she would have been able to, solidify and have some consistency in the way that Sidney Prescott does. I think from a certain perspective, I think horror fans might see Danielle as a final girl, and really, I mean, a true final girl, not a final woman, a final girl. You know what I mean? Yeah, so that's legit. In the purest sense of the word. And there's lots of others I'm sure we could think of, but those are a few there that I think we were sort of rolling around with as well. And yes, you could certainly go back to the 40s and the 50s in some movies.
Oh yeah, you can pull out the damsels in distress from the old monster films
for
and stuff
sure.
Absolutely. And I know people in the comment section are going to, and look, we're not arguing it. I think Dave and I, we said this at the beginning, and not to repeat ourselves, but the measuring stick we're using with this is really Chainsaw Massacre 74. Because when we're having these conversations with people, that's usually the starting point, and then you're talking about everything up to like current times. Right. No one's really pulling out names unless you are a knee deep sweaty horror fan, and you're going to pull out some name from some slasher film that isn't in the zeitgeist of the everyday conversation of people. The everyday conversation that most people are talking about, they're pulling out the Sallys, the Laurie Strodes, the Sidneys, the Jeannies from Fridays, the Nancy Thompsons, the Jessicas, the Rachels. These are the characters that are often talked about when it comes to final girls, or the Jamie Lloyd, and whatnot. So I know someone in the comment section is gonna say it, but just that's what Dave and I are using. We're using it as more of like what is generally talked about in the community amongst fans, of which girls are usually talked about.
Right. No, fair enough. So number one is for both of us is Nancy Thompson from A Nightmare on Elm Street. Of course, the character appeared in A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors in 1987, and Wes Craven's New Nightmare from 1994, the meta slasher where she was playing a fictional version of herself.
Dylan's New Nightmare, never know, maybe, possibly.
I'm not at liberty to say anything.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Not at liberty to say anything. So, the reason for me that I chose Heather Langenkamp, I've talked about Nancy Thompson a lot, is for a similar reason why I think Rachel had so much untapped potential. Now, Heather doesn't have that consistency that Sidney Prescott does, but Heather is almost the perfect archetype of what a final girl is. And you could say this, you could say the same thing about Sidney, but there's something about Heather's, I don't know, there's something about Heather, about Nancy Thompson in that first Elm Street film, especially that first Elm Street film, that I just feel that during the golden age of slasher movies in the 80s, she is the quintessential archetype of what a final girl is. It's
perfectly written. Yes.
You can put her next to the definition, just as you can put Laurie Strode there. Laurie Strode may be there over Nancy because Laurie Strode has the zeitgeist,
Popularity.
right? Has the zeitgeist legacy, you know, all that kind of stuff. But in terms of just the qualities of a legacy character, you know, Nancy has it. I mean, I mean, it's just, well, I mean, as you said at the top of the show, you know, we're first introduced to her. She's got the girl next door, you know, she's got, you know, virginal, you know what I mean? She's not, her and Glenn, not happening, you know. I actually think Sidney does have sex with Billy Loomis, if I'm not mistaken. They do.
By the end of the first,
by the end. So there's a trope that kind of goes out the window. Nancy, you know, you got Tina and Rod who are, you know, banging each other like a screen door in a hurricane, you know, next door, right?
What the fuck?
I'm
good night,
just,
folks.
I'm just saying. I
wasn't expecting that.
I'm just saying. That's well. Feel free to use it. And of course she's with Glenn, and Glenn wants to, you know, he wants to, very much like Billy Loomis and Sidney, but Nancy doesn't, you know, there's that archetype there. She doesn't, right? She's virginal. She's pure. And it helps. It's also very symbolic. I think what helps, dude, I think what helps Nancy stand out a lot is also the symbolism that surrounds the type of story that A Nightmare on Elm Street is. It is a very clearly defined evil versus good. Freddy Krueger is a dream demon. For all intents and purposes, he is the devil in this scenario. He is the epitome of evil. So the antithesis of that has to be somebody that is pure, that is, you know, the light and love and potential and young and fresh and virginal and, you know what I'm saying? An angel. Yeah. I'm just saying, right? The type of movie that it is. Scream is not the same kind of movie that A Nightmare on Elm Street is. You don't look at Ghostface as you know, the epitome of evil. You know what I'm saying? Freddy Krueger, you do. And that's why there's that great line where he's like, "This is God." You know, it's like, oh my, it's chilling. It's one of the best lines in the whole franchise because of what it means symbolically. You know, because he is not God. That's why it works. Because he's saying, no, in this world, I am God. I am the devil.
Right.
I am, you know what I'm saying? He's not saying it literally, obviously. Don't misquote me, people who are watching this after the fact. I'm just saying that symbolically, through the use of cinematic language, there's a lot of that symbolism in dreams. That's why you see the goat, right, at the very, you know, beginning of Tina's, you know, dream, or excuse me, the lamb, right? The sacrificial lamb, right? You see the lamb, you know, run by. There's all sorts of like wonderful.
And I don't think people really caught on to that.
No, I don't think they do.
The symbolism of what the lamb means,
right?
You know, and
of course,
Tina is the sacrificial lamb.
Of course, you know? That's right. And so there's so much through Wes Craven's writing and adaptation. There's so adaptation, of course, from the story that he read, you know, about the I think it was Cambodian kids that,
and
you know,
his personal experience of how he created Freddy,
right?
You know,
right?
I mean,
100%. But there's so much. It really is a perfect. A perfect situation where you have good and evil. It's so clearly defined. And when you have somebody who's so dark and so evil and so grotesque, who's got a claw in his hands, who murders you in your dreams and knows your deepest fears and exploits them. He knows when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. It's like Santa Claus. He gets into your dreams and he exploits your fears and your worries and your vulnerabilities. You need the antithesis of that, which is that girl next door who's pure. She needs to be just as clearly defined. Just as clearly defined. She can't have sex. You know what I mean? Not that there's anything wrong, but I'm just saying, right? You want, again, you're just defining that purity, right? That purity, that light, that love. And she's got that cute girl next door look to her already, right? And then at the end, she fights back. She fights back. So it's just such in that first movie, it's such a perfect encapsulation of the archetype of a final girl that I think that's for me, that's why she's my number one.
Yeah, skipping Dream Warriors, really, when you watch the first one and Wes Craven's New Nightmare, because you still get a bit of that Dream Warriors, her character's written different. I don't blame her for that. I would have liked to have seen Wes more involved with it. Did he write? Didn't he write?
No, he had an idea for.
He had an idea for the third one.
I think he might have been. I don't know. He's a producer on it or something. I can't remember.
I thought he had some type of involvement with it. But anyways, I like Dream Warriors for what it is. I have mixed feelings on how they handled her character. I to this day, the first time her and Freddie see each other should not have been when Freddie was a worm. That was so dumb. Yeah. That should have been more. That should have been more of an intense moment where he's Freddie and she's him or her. She's her. In the dream, and he sees her and he's like, "You," and points the glove at her. Something so intense like that.
How he first sees her in New Nightmare. Miss me. You know what I mean? Because he comes out of the closet, right?
Very
That's
intense.
Cool. That's cool.
Right? Yeah. That's what I like about New Nightmare. Yeah. Tell you what, New Nightmare is edging up to be my second favorite in that franchise. It's just really, it's a good movie. Mm-hmm. But yeah, everything you said about her character, I said it at the beginning. She is the perfect written final girl in that first film.
Yeah.
If you're going to write a horror movie and you're going to have a final girl in your horror movie and you need to base it off of something, Nightmare on Elm Street is the bar. I mean, literally, that is the bar that you set for. That is the perfect way to write your final girl, but obviously make it your own. You don't want to steal, Wes's ideas for what he created with Nancy. You make it your own, but that's what you use. And and all the other girls that we've mentioned, there's a bit of Nancy and Rachel. There's a bit of Nancy even in Sidney. There's a bit of, Wes obviously pulled some ideas from Laurie into Nancy, or even Jess into Nancy, or even maybe not so much Sally, but certainly Laurie, certainly a little bit of Jess. You could see a bit
for sure.
Nancy pretty much embodies all the final girls in that one character.
I was just going to say, 100%. It's not that, the other girls we've talked about here today are not great final girls. Obviously they are. They wouldn't be on our lists. It's just that, again, I think it really goes back to how clearly defined it is in Elm Street because of the story, because it's so much about good versus evil, right? It's so much about that. It's so clearly defined that you watch it and you go, holy shit, like this is so clear. You know what I mean? There's not, whereas when you watch Scream, it's like she's the final girl, but it's not, but you're not dealing with the devil. You're not dealing with demons and dreamed, and it's just the cinematic language and the symbolism in Elm Street is so good that you really go, she's the final girl. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's the final girl, like you're able to pick her out so easily because it's like a painting. It's like looking at like a painting and going, there's she, because it's so defined. It's so beautifully, the lines are so clearly defined. And that's why it works. And she's great. Right down to her look. Right down to her look, the innocence. The girl next door, the sweet, cute girl next door, right down to her look. It's like even Laurie Strode, like Jamie Lee Curtis she has more bolder features, whereas Heather Langenkamp has more of that cuter features. So even from a archetype stereotypical point of view, Heather wins because, she's got that girl next door look. Laurie Strode wasn't a girl next door type in terms of look. I'm not saying she's ugly or anything. I'm just talking about the archetype, right? The stereotype, right? Of what you think of and what writers use and what they go to. You know what I'm saying? Sidney has more of that girl next door look, right? Which was probably, you ask casting, I can guarantee you during the casting process for Scream, is it a coincidence that it was also a Wes film? I don't know. I guarantee you that Wes would have been like, I'm looking for this, and this. This is the kind of girl I'm looking for. And that's what they go out and find, and it's no secret that, one of the reasons why Laurie Strode was cast in Halloween was because of who her parents were, right? Not necessarily because she had the perfect archetypal look. You know what I mean? It was more about who her parents were. And that makes sense when you're, shooting a $300,000 budget, you can use her name to market it. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we don't think about these things necessarily consciously, but the writers do, and the casting directors do, and the filmmakers do. And when the writing is really good, you shouldn't think about it consciously. But when you look at it and break it down, you're like, oh, it's so obvious, and Elm Street is just she's great. And Heather's great. Heather's great as that character, I think that's all. I mean, what else is there to say about it?
Get to the questions.
Let's get to the questions, man. So those are our top. Comment below and let Tony and I know your top
let us know
5.
your guys who are your top. Because again, this is not like Dave and I are not carving this in stone. This is our personal favorites.
Just us.
We want to know what your personal favorites are. Definitely leave it in the comments section because we'll check that out afterwards and see what who you like. And it doesn't matter. Someone asked me about what's her name, Clarice from Silence of the Lambs. If you want to put her in there as your favorite, yeah, that's yours, man.
Throw her in there.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all. Not at all. Eddie Chase sends in 9. Oh, so now, folks, you can send in questions, send in super chats if you'd like. Eddie Chase sends in $9.99 and says, missed your take on Scream 6. I haven't seen it yet. But I loved.
Hello? I don't want to know.
You just want to know? Oh.
As soon as you said, but I love.
Oh, no.
I don't want to know. I'm not going to get spoiled.
Yeah, okay. Take your headphones out and I'll let you know. Yeah. Mr. Take on Scream 6, I hated it, loved Bodega, train, ladder, Gale, apartment scene, suspenseful and brutal kills, and GF badass, even liked opening killer wannabe copycat angle in first scene. Okay. All right, Tony, you can bring it back in. Cool.
I have not seen the movie yet. Sorry.
I haven't seen it yet either,
see it soon.
But I know a lot about it, so it's not a big deal. But we will see it soon. Eddie, we will see it soon. Thank you for the super chat. Eddie Chase follows up with $4.99 and says, as for final girls, he's going with Sid, Ginny, Laurie, Ripley, and Sally Hardesty. And love Rachel and Halloween 4. Much love, guys. Thank you, Eddie. Appreciate that, man. Good list. Good list. Josh McKenna sends in $9.99 and says, what's the worst customer service experience you ever had? Like at a restaurant, store, or company where you received super shitty service? That's a good one, Josh.
I think we've all experienced some bad form of customer service over the years. I mean, I can't just pinpoint one because there's probably been many where I will say this. I will say certainly in the last 5 years or so, the quality of service in places you go into certainly has dropped.
That is true.
There seems to be a less enthusiasm for people wanting to work, wanting to provide good quality work. Things that I see younger people getting away with now, we never would have gotten away with that shit in the 90s.
It's true.
So I don't know. And that's not hating on younger people. There are hardworking young adults out there that, you know what I mean? But certainly I will say this, there's a reason why we never eat out except for one place. There's a pizza shop because we know the guys, they're from Brooklyn. And we know them very well. It's a little taste of home for us anyways, because we're from the Northeast. And they're just spot on with their pie. And that's the only place. Everything else is home cooked. Because we started to even notice that with restaurants and stuff like that. Like your food comes to you and it's basically being tossed on the table and it's like not really looks like a half-assed job being prepared. And I'm like, I'm paying what, $30 a pop here for my meal. And I'm getting like half-assed served, like, no, but it just work ethics. It just, I don't know. I don't know what it is. All I know is I definitely have job security because I love working and I will work my ass off. That's just my mentality. I'm a hard worker. I'll I'll do 10
and as a
different
real
types
estate
of-
photographer, there's always work.
Well, not even just real estate. I'll do any type of photography.
Yeah.
You can whore me out to anything, and I'll do it. I don't care. I don't care what the job is. I don't care what you want me to do. If it requires to be photographed, I will. That's been my mentality, and that's why I feel like, as far as job security in my field, I'll shoot anything. You have a lot of young people who have this unfortunate misconception of and social media is a big blame for it, is that, well, I'm going to be the next top photographer and have all these followers and stuff like that. Do you know how many top photographers who have a lot of followers that did great street photography that I've talked to one-on-one in conversation? They broke as fuck. They ain't doing this. They ain't doing what I'm doing. They ain't secure in a career because they're doing things for the wrong. And that's what I would tell them. Like, you're doing it for the wrong reason, man. You got to look at this as a business, and you got to find yourself job opportunities. Taking great photos and getting a lot of likes on Instagram doesn't do shit. I mean, I did that with the horror pictures for a while, and it gets old, and you're like, there's no money to be made here. If you want to make a career out of it, you got to find ways and carve your path. Otherwise you're just, not everybody gets the sponsorships. Not everybody gets all the, the bells and whistles that comes with being a big time influencers. That's a very small percentage.
It's very true. It's very true. And Josh, I can't think of anything off the top of my head where I've received poor customer. I mean, I know I have for sure, but well, I do know that there was. This is actually fairly recent. There was at the post office near where I live. But it's not her fault. She just should not have been in that position. There was a girl that was new there, and there was a huge lineup, and she was getting everything wrong, and there were people that were yelling at her, and I'm sort of there, and I wanted to kind of, pull the people aside and say, don't yell. Listen, she's clearly not ready yet, and they should not have allowed her to be in that position. She should be there with somebody. Unless she really is incompetent and just doesn't know her fucking ass from her elbow. I don't know, but I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt and just go, yeah, she's just not properly trained. They just left her on a bad day, alone. So that was a little, but that's not, it's poor customer service, but I don't think it's her fault necessarily. So that's why when I got to the, to the counter, I was, nice and pleasant. She's like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, don't worry about it. Calm down. Everything's cool. Don't let them get you, is what I said before I left. I said, don't let them get to you, and I think she appreciated that. But, it's just, I can't think off the top. I know I have, but I got to think of something specific. Oh, well, there was one time when I was a teenager, I was eating, I can't remember what happened, but I remember I was eating at this little restaurant with my buddy Brian. We were like, I don't know, 19 or something. And we were eating at this restaurant, and the service must have been terrible because, the food was fine, but the service must have been terrible because I remember I left a tip, but I left a penny. And that, now of course people, they leave tips, over debit, but I left a penny on the table as a tip. And Brian said, why are you leaving a penny? I said, well, if I leave nothing, they might just think that I forgot to tip. But if I leave a penny, it shows, no, he didn't forget to tip. He's just basically saying, this is what your service was worth, a penny. You know what I mean? So I remember doing that, but I can't remember why. It must have been really bad for me to do that because I'm pretty accommodating.
I don't know. What was it like? I don't know. I can't speak for you up in Canada, but like growing up in Connecticut, man, as a kid in the 80s and 90s, I just remember really good waitresses and being served really good food. Like I could go to
sure.
Like I could go to like Friendly's or Denny's, which are basically the same type of restaurant. I don't know if you have Friendly's. I know you.
We don't
Denny's,
have Friendly's.
right?
We have lots of Denny's. Yeah.
You're right. So you know what I'm talking about. And even in then, which is not like 5-star, it's just basically your local hangout, and you would get good service, good waitress.
We used to.
People took pride in their work. Now, forget it.
No, listen, I mean, it's very far and few between. Me and my buddies used to eat at Denny's after a night out at the bar.
Yeah, I think everybody did.
The club. Yeah, we'd go to Denny's at like 3:00 in the morning, and so I'd have to think about it a bit more, but I'm sure there is more. Eddie Chase sends in $9.99. Thank you, Eddie, and says, as for what? Oh, okay, take your things out again.
Another one.
As for what I hated on Scream 6, Mindy and Gale attacks ruined by their survivals. Chad lived despite he was stabbed like human pinata. I'm talking quietly so Tony doesn't hear me. Why did writers lack balls to race Stakes again. Shame. Same bullshit. I don't know. Haven't seen the movie yet. Okay, Tony. You can put it back in. Haven't seen it yet, so I don't know, Eddie, but looking forward to it. Don't worry. Tony and I will probably do a watch along on the channel when it comes to digital. Gentle on James sends in $5. Thank you, Gentle. Says, watch the DNN trailer. It's Dylan's New Nightmare and was blown away. And you as Freddy was perfect. I actually think it looks better than its source material. Well, thank you very much, Eddie.
Eddie, it looks really fucking
Gentle,
cool.
I mean. Make sure you let the horror show and Cecil Laird know that. There's some people out there that, and I guess I understand why. Some people have been reaching out to me through DMs and saying that, oh, Dave, they'll use things like, they'll say things like, you and your team have done a great job. When is this? When is that? Again, I need to reiterate, I'm just an actor on this project. Okay, I'm not the producer. I'm not a director. I'm not a writer. I'm not spearheading this at all. That's Cecil Laird of the Horror Show and his team, and Vincent DeSanti of Womp Stomp Films. So now, because I'm also a filmmaker, I've been privy to information, and they've shared some ideas with me, and they've bounced some ideas my way for which I've given some thoughts, which is very nice of them to do. They certainly don't have to do that, but this is not my project per se. It's mine in the sense that I'm Freddy in the movie, and that's amazing. But a lot of the questions that I get asked, I just don't know, because I don't know when the release date's going to be. I don't know when, how the editing's going, or how that's going to happen, or, if that's going to do this, or where that's going to take place, or what. I don't know. I'm just the actor, right? This is a situation where, I often say that actors will spend a certain amount of time on a project and then they're done. You know what I mean? And then really it's all it's the producers and the directors and the writers that spend the most time with a project from its inception to completion. So, but again, like I said, Cecil has been very kind. Yeah, because the only
time the actors revisit is when they're promoting it.
Right. Right. And unless they are also a producer on it or the director, right? If, if Ben Affleck, he's the director and the writer and the star or something, sure, he'll be with it from inception to completion. But generally, yeah, when you're an actor on a project, let's say like a Hollywood film, you'll come on, you'll shoot for, 2 months, and then you go away. And what they do with the project is what they do with the project. You have no say in what happens with it until they say, hey, we're ready to start, promoting it. We've booked you on, Fallon. We've booked you on here. We've booked you on, Good Morning America. And because you're contractually obligated to help promote the films, that's what you have to go and do. And they get paid for that, obviously. It's built into their contract. But yeah, so I just want to make sure people understand that, just because it's not me and Bruce. I think there was somebody that thought it was Bruce and I that were doing it. It's not Bruce and I. Bruce is not attached to the project in any way, shape, or form. And I'm just Freddy Krueger on it. So just keep that in mind. Please steer all your love and admiration for the quality or for how it looks or whatever to Cecil Laird and the Horror Show, because those are the guys that deserve all that. Freddy, you can toss my way.
There you go.
And Nora Hewitt as well, the special effects makeup artist, Nora Hewitt, of course, for the amazing job that she did on Freddy's makeup. I'm somebody that loves to give, it's important to me that the proper people get the proper credit.
Credit is due. Absolutely.
Let me see here. Okay. I know a couple other super chats came in, so let me get those. Gentle on James. Yes. Cody Snyder, one of our great mods. Cody Snyder says, not counting Ellen Ripley and going off personal favorites. This is for Cody. 1, Trish Jarvis. Ooh, Trish Jarvis is his number 1. Number 2, Rachel Carruthers. Number 3, Christy Cotton in Hellraiser. Ooh, okay. Hey, I like this. I like where you're thinking.
I've never seen Hellraiser?
I've only seen the first one. I've never seen any of the others.
I've never even seen the first one.
And I haven't seen it.
I started to watch a little bit of it, but I didn't stick with it.
I haven't seen it in like 30 years. Maybe we should watch it.
Do a first watch with you. I'll watch it for the first time.
Yeah, because it'll be like watching it for the first time with me, because I haven't seen it since I was like 12.
Yeah, I guess you could do that.
Might be able to do that. Yeah. And then he says, number 3 is Christy Cotton, and number 4 is Stretch from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Number 5 is Ruby from The Hills Have Eyes, 1977. Wow. Okay. See that? I like what you're thinking. Going a little broad, bringing in some unexpected ones. I like it. Honorable mentions are Valerie from SPM. What's SPM? SPM.
I almost said Supernatural, but that's SPN.
What's SPM, chat room? Or if Cody he is in the chat still. Cody, what's SPM? It's going to be something obvious, and we're going to be like, oh yeah. I don't know what SPM is. SPM. PM. Cody, what's SPM?
It's going to be something that you and I are going to be like, oh,
Slumber Party Massacre. Okay.
Of course.
All right. Of course. Okay, cool. It's one I haven't seen, actually. I've never seen Slumber Party. Or have I?
I have. That I have seen.
If I have, it's been years. And then Laurie and Nancy. Cool. Awesome, Cody. And thank you for the very generous super chat of $20. Really appreciate it.
The thing with Slumber Party Massacre is I don't remember the names. I just remember the movie.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It's just,
I got
There's just some movies in this genre that I remember watching them, but I'm like, I couldn't tell you the names of people.
Yeah, I hear you.
I know Amy Steele is in April Fool's Day, but I couldn't even tell you her character's name.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Without cheating and doing a Google search.
I think her name is Kit.
Like Knight Rider?
Yeah, I think it's Kit. Because I just watched it for a Patreon Saturday movie night. So I'm pretty sure it's Kit. I watched it on April Fool's Day, which was a Saturday. Fast Forwards 29 sends in $9.99, says, what's up, D&T? Hope you've been well. Out of the big three, I'd say my favorite final girl would be either Ginny from Friday 2 or Rachel from H4. Hey, can't go wrong. Hard to say which is my favorite. Depends on my mood. But those are two good ones, though. Those are two really good ones for sure. Caleb Parkinson sends in $1.99. Thank you, Caleb, and says, Halloween, a Fancy Nancy story. I know it is. Fancy Nancy. Do I have, it's not, it's somewhere around here. My little Tony Moran soundbite. Fast Forwards 29 follows up with $4.99 and says, agreed, there is no quality or pride of workmanship anywhere anymore, and it's a shame. Hopefully one day we'll get back to some good quality service. Yeah, I think the thing that annoys the fuck out of me is just how I can never, and this has been going on for a long time now, I can never speak to a bloody human being when I call some business. It's always prompt after prompt after prompt after prompt. I want a human being. Does that annoy you, Tony?
Yeah, I just skip and just say customer service until they finally
just keep hitting 00000 whatever.
That too. I'm like, the thing of it is, man, is that again, we come from a different generation. I'm sure a lot of people my age can sit there and talk about their first jobs. My first job I had was a paper route when I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
Not only did I have a paper route, I piggybacked off of that paper route because I lived in a great area to do this. Summertime, I was cutting some of my customers' lawns, shoveling their driveways in the winter, and raking their leaves to the front, because where our town set it up is that you would rake the leaves to the front edge of your property and they would come by and suck up all the leaves.
Dude, this is uncharacteristic because I'm a male, but one of my first jobs as a teenager was a babysitter.
That's not uncharacteristic. I know a lot of young guys who were babysitting.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, no, I would babysit because I had a younger, I still do. Hello, Katie, if you're watching. My younger half sister. When we grew up together, she's 8 years younger than me, and so when I was like, 17, she was like, what is that? She was like 9 or whatever it is. My math is off 10, 9. Yeah, I think that's right. So I would often babysit her friends. You know what I mean? So I would go over to her friends' houses and babysit. And I also would, in the wintertime, on the outdoor rink near my house, when it would snow, I was the kid over there with my skates shoveling the snow, getting it off the outdoor rink and shit like that. Yeah. So, yeah.
So, work ethics were instilled at me at a very young age, and good work ethics, as well too, and always providing good services, making sure the newspaper was always delivered to the customers on time, and then making sure I honored my obligations to those customers who wanted me to shovel the driveway for them in winter, and it was believe me, it was a good way to make extra money. I was doing between the paper route and doing all the extra yard work and stuff. Yeah. I was doing okay, and I was able to get myself the stuff that I needed to get. I just think that's something that's lost on. I don't blame the young generation, because for them, they grew up in a generation where parents are my age, who are parents and who might be, let's say 10 years, we'll say like early 50s as well too. Gave their kids everything. I mean, they're giving their kids stuff that we never had growing up, whether it's an iPhone, or if it's a tablet, or whatever. I mean, these kids are getting things now. And I understand from the parent perspective, even though I'm not a parent, but I do get it, the pressure of feeling like you gotta, your kid has to have the same gaming system or whatever that the so-and-so kid having. I mean, granted, we had Nintendo and stuff like that, but for the most part, outside of Nintendo, the stuff that these kids have today, man, it doesn't compare. And I think there's too much spoiled. There's certainly too much spoiled that's going on with and why I think if these kids were taught, like, whether it's doing chores or getting a paper route, which honestly nowadays you do. I don't know if there's really a need for it, but something in that line where, it's teaching good work ethic skills at a young age. It does carry over as an adult. I'm not saying every parent out there, but a lot of it falls on us, our generation, not teaching what our parents taught us down to the kids who are now young adults. I mean, these are kids that are in their late teens and early 20s. And man, I just see some of this shit sometimes and I shake my head like, man, there's no way I would have gotten away with that at that age.
I know. So, I know what you mean. And then let's see here. Super chat from Sweet Tea sends in $10. The tea is sweet. I always got to do it. For the channel, my friends, be safe too. Thank you, Sweet Tea. Really appreciate that very much. Obviously, we do. I think that is all this. Have I got all the super chats? I think I have, although I'm not 100% sure. I'm sure the chat room would let us know. Let's grab a couple non-super chat ones before we call the show. Let me see here. If you see something.
No, it's definitely not the result of single parenting household. My mom was a single parent. I mean, granted, my dad was moderately in our life at times. Yeah, there was times that he wasn't, but no, it's definitely how you were raised. It can have
an effect, but how you're raised is important. Yeah. Well, it really depends on how stable you are and how good the parent is. Yeah. I mean, that's at the end of the day, right? I mean, you can have two parents.
My mom she was not, and my dad too. They were just not afraid to say no. Like, hey, we're not going to give you everything that you ask for.
You can have two parents that are dysfunctional. Yep. You know what I mean?
But if you want it, fucking go get a job and earn it. And
that's true.
That was their mentality. And so we did.
Here's a question from Bobby Hall. Bobby Hall says, Dave and Tony, would it have been possible to make a sequel to Halloween 5 while still having the shape be ambiguous force of nature? Maybe explain that the hermit gave Michael the thorn tattoo because he's crazy. Well, I think it really comes down to,
I just wish the whole thorn tattoo didn't even exist.
Yeah, that's what it really is.
Like, it's from that moment on, when we see that at the beginning and the hand turns over, the franchise tanks. It really does, because you're like, okay, now what are we doing?
Yeah, it's more that thing where because I look at a situation where it depends on what you mean by ambiguous, right? Like the second, even though Halloween 2 from 1981 is my favorite sequel. The second they made Halloween 2 from 1981, the mystery and the mystique of Michael went down a little notch. And then when they made Halloween 4, even though I think it's the last good sequel, the mystery and mystique went down another little notch. And then with Halloween 5, it just drops and, crumbles, right? So, really it's a product of quantity. The more sequels you make about a character whose foundation was built and relies so heavily on mystique, ambiguity, and being an enigma, the more sequels you make, the harder and harder it is to maintain that. Even if you're maintaining it a little bit, just by the sheer fact that we are seeing more movies with him, the mystique deteriorates, right? So I think just the fact that Halloween 5 exists is also problematic. And But could they have done a better job? Yes. I mean, if they had done what Tony has often said here on the channel, or what I've often said, and not done what they did in 5, yeah, you would have, it would, see, 5, okay, so Halloween 2, so you can see me here, right? Halloween 2 is like, so you got Halloween 1, right at the top of my frame there, Halloween 1, Halloween 2. Is that because Halloween 2 shit? No, it's just because Halloween 2 exists, right? So, we're seeing him more. We see his eyes when he jumps up behind the couch. You know what I'm saying, right? You know what I'm saying? So, okay, we've dropped a little bit. And then we go to Halloween 4. Okay, we've dropped a little bit more. Is that because Halloween 4 is dog shit? Well, no, it's just because it exists, and now we're seeing it a bit more, and it's not that great of a mask and whatever. But then you have Halloween 5. Now it goes all the way down. It just collapses all the way down to the bottom of the frame here, right? All the way down to the bottom of the frame. So if Halloween 5 had been a different story, a completely different story, a better story, and they had utilized Michael more like Halloween 4, it probably would have been, Halloween 1, Halloween 2, Halloween 4, Halloween 5. You know what I mean? That's probably what would have happened. But unfortunately, it was a gigantic structural failure. Anyway, Super chat comes in from Fast Forwards 289, sends a 999, says, Dave, the trailer for Dylan's New Nightmare looked great, and you looked great as Freddy. Thank you so much, buddy. Really appreciate that. Really looking forward to seeing the film. Great work to you and everyone involved. Also looking forward to Never Hike Alone 2. And don't forget, it's me, Billy, too. It's me, Billy, too. Don't forget it's me, Billy, too. Fast Forwards. Don't forget it's me, Billy, too. Crowdfunding on Monday, May the 1st, 2 weeks today. Never Hike Alone 2 has got all the money. Dylan's New Nightmare's got their money. We don't have money yet.
You'll get it.
We need money. But yes, I'm looking forward to Never Hike Alone 2 as well. Shout out to Vincent DeSanti. And then a super sticker. Hey, that's cool. Arthur Vega sends in a super sticker and just says, thanks for being a friend. Travel down the road and back. I can't even sing. Thanks for being you. A very generous super sticker, if I might add. Thank you for supporting the channel like that, Arthur Vega. Really appreciate it. And then Zigo R Skate 45, $1.99 says, Stiff Upper Lip is a banger of an album. I could not agree more. Now we're talking, Z. Now we're talking. That's the kind of super chats I like. Yeah, Stiff Upper Lip by AC/DC. I actually went and saw the tour. I actually saর their concert.
Nice.
The Stiff Upper Lip tour. Oh, and then a couple more came in. Z follows up with another $1.99, says H18 Comic Relief brought the movie down big time. I agree. And then follows up with another $1.99, says peanut butter and H18. Like, really? Who says that?
Peanut butter on my penis.
Got peanut butter on my penis. I got peanut butter on my penis. It's just because nobody says the word penis.
Danny McBride.
Nobody says penis. He would have said like crotch.
It's Danny McBride humor.
Nobody says penis. He would have said like crotch or on myself or something. Got peanut butter on my penis. Anyway, that was a good show, man. You want to call it? I think that's a good spot to call it. Let's call it.
Getting to 2.5 hours.
For sure. Let's do it. Let's do it, ladies and gentlemen. That is going to do it for episode 187 of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. Thank you to our great moderators, Frank Riker, Tabitha Shore, Darren Sands, Chris Baber, Cody Snyder, and Andrew Stevens. Thank you for doing what you guys do. We really appreciate it. Thank you to all the super chat questions that came in today. Oh, a couple came in right at IMB VHS perk possible. No, I don't think we're going to have a VHS perk for IMB 2. And then AK Channel TV says, saw John Wick with an older crowd, and it was the best showing I've had in years. Kids can't put their phones down even while talking. Thank you for the super chat, and we could not agree with you more. Fuck kids in the movie theater. Get them out. Beat them up, toss them into a garbage disposal. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. Tony and I will be back next Monday night, of course. And comment below and let Tony and I know your thoughts on the Final Girls. We want to know. And also remember, It's Me, Billy, Chapter 2, Indiegogo campaign, Monday, May the 1st. We need your help. Everybody who came out before, we need you to come out again. You're all amazing. That'll do it for us. Tony, any last things you want to say?
No, this was fun. Good show.
All right. Amazing. Good night, everybody. In the meantime and in between time, we will talk to you soon. Cheers.